In September of 2012, I began doing archaeological work in Mariposa, California. And about 2 weeks after that, I started having joint pain. And about 4 weeks after that, I had developed bilateral pneumonia and a rash all over my body.
Karen Deeming was a healthy 48-year-old living in Los Banos, California, working on her master's degree in anthropology with a focus on archaeology.
I was dizzy, weak, exhausted. That was the biggest thing, was the exhaustion. And you can't think straight. It affects your mind as well. So I went to the local Pinnacle Healthcare here, and they were going to take some x-rays and see what was going on. And came back and told me to go straight to the hospital because I had bilateral pneumonia and masses in my lungs.
Karen is not alone. She's one of a growing number of people in the southwestern United States who've struggled with a disease that is difficult to diagnose and even more difficult to treat. We are here in California's Central Valley investigating valley fever. Valley fever is a fungal disease. Its spores live in the soil, and it actually thrives in hot, dusty conditions. There were about 2,000 cases in 1998, and in 2011 there were 23,000 cases. Since 1991, 3,000 people have died of valley fever. Nobody quite knows what the uptick is about. There are a few theories. One theory is that it has to do with more people moving to this area. Other people think that climate change could be playing a role, that it might be causing some of the hot and dry and dusty conditions in which these spores thrive. So we are on the 99 South, heading toward Fresno, and I'm hoping that the doctor that we're talking to down in Fresno will be able to tell us what it's like to have valley fever and maybe about some of his theories as to why it's increasing so much.
The specific area that I've been most focused on is the way that valley fever can present looking like lung cancer and helping to differentiate patients who are coming in who actually have a valley fever infection from those patients that are actually presenting with lung cancer. Most people probably that are infected with valley fever never have any real significant problems. They may have no symptoms to a severe cold and have it pass and not really recognize it was anything bad. The other end of the extreme with valley fever is people can develop what's called disseminated disease, and that is that the fungus spreads to the rest of the body, bones, skin, and the most dangerous place is in the meninges around the brain and develop a meningitis.
So how easy is it to contract this disease?
You're exposed to it all the time in the valley, but certainly change in climate and change in soil characteristics will have a big impact potentially on where this disease occurs.
Here in the Central Valley, almost everyone knows someone who's had the disease, but not much is known about who's most likely to get it. Certain ethnic groups, African Americans and Filipinos, seem to be especially susceptible, as do people who work outside. 18 prisoners have recently died of valley fever, and many more have gotten sick. The state of California has ordered the transfer of 2,500 prisoners out of 2 Central Valley prisons that have been particularly hard hit. We're here at California State University, Bakersfield, in the lab of Dr. Antje Lauer, where she studies the various kinds of environments in the soil where valley fever thrives.
These are soil samples which were frozen, and we have tested them recently, and they were positive for the valley fever fungus. But what I want to point out is how that soil looks like. You see that's powdery, has a lot of clay, gray, not much organic matter. When rodents have their burrows to live throughout the winter, they collect seeds. Some of them, if they're not guarded very well by the rodents, succumb to fungal degradation.
I wondered if you could talk a little bit about the connection between the uptick in cases in valley fever and climate change.
I think there is a link. When global warming continues, we will see more cases of valley fever. And some people believe this is because of warming up. The soil, the weather, less rain.
And you live here in Bakersfield, right?
Yes.
And you have kids.
Yes.
Are you worried living
Yes,
here
I
about
am.
it? Yeah.
And I'm getting worried more and more, honestly.
Yeah.
I wasn't that worried at the beginning, but the more I learn about it, the more I get worried.
Yeah.
So I try to get our immune system in a good shape as our first weapon.
Dr. Jorge Talamantes and his colleagues are using satellite mapping technology to better understand valley fever, also known as coccidioidomycosis. Once they find a hotspot full of valley fever spores, they analyze the soil around it and compare it to soil in other areas to predict where else the fungus might live. We're now at UC Merced, where a team is taking a collaborative approach to treating and preventing valley fever. We're going to talk to molecular and cell biologists, public health experts, and behavioral specialists about their work.
Dr. McCarty is seeing 4 to 10 patients 2 times a week. So quite a high number of kids and families being very much affected. It does seem to be a chronic illness for some families. Right. The antifungals take years to clear. Wow. So the kids and families are having to deal with this. And a lot of these families have to travel 2 or 3 hours to get to Children's Hospital Central California, so it's not an easy little short drive for them.
So how do you strategize around a public health campaign for, regular people who just live here in the Central Valley?
It tends to be that you're exposed to the fungus when you're outdoors and you're breathing dust. And so if you're working in areas where dust is likely, you're more likely to be exposed. So whether you're a construction worker and need a special mask because you're going to be in a high density area, then technically your employer would be purchasing that mask for you.
The group at UC Merced's main message was that more research on valley fever is needed, and national attention will help get researchers the funding they need. Luckily, on that front, there's some progress. Congressman Kevin McCarthy, who represents California's 23rd district in parts of Kern, Tulare, and LA counties, has created a valley fever task force and invited CDC experts on fungal diseases to visit the Central Valley and learn more about the disease. In the meantime, if you want to learn more about valley fever and who's at risk, check out this CDC website.